And I'm worried. Honestly, I love both of these guys. You know, if I had it my way, TriGGeR would also be a CranKy Duckling. Unfortunately, CranKy Ducklings, we haven't grown to the point where we can expand into North America yet. But if we did, TriGGeR would be 100% the #1 player that I would want to get my hands on. I don't know if I can say that. I don't think TriGGeR is legal. I don't know if he's even 18 right now. But yes, TriGGeR is an amazing player. He also pops by the stream. He also supports the CranKy Ducklings as best he can. He's donated to the stream before. He's a great guy, and here he is, the American Hope right now. The NA Hope in Battle of the Americas, representing Team Alpha X. We have the Red Protoss, TriGGeR. And spawning in the top right hand corner of 2000 atmospheres LE, we have the Peruvian Zerg. He is blue, representing the CranKy Ducklings, the Street Fighter himself. He's been waiting a long time for his next match, but finally it has begun. We have Ryu, El Condor himself. And we'll see how this series goes. Again, the last time they played, I believe, was in Battle of the Americas OSC Super Series qualifier a month ago, maybe just over a month ago, where they played, and it was a best of 5, and it did go all the way to the ace match between these two players. It was very close, but TriGGeR did take it in the end. Ryu, can he bring it back here? Can he have his revenge? Can he make it to those grand finals? We'll see. Like, Ryu, he does have really good ZVP, but what I worry about is that more often than not, Ryu will go to the late game, and he will struggle in the late game. He doesn't go for these like early timing attacks more often than not. He has done it in the past, you know, he sprinkles it in every now and then, but yeah, typically he embraces the late game, and we've seen how that goes for Zerg players. It can be very difficult. He does come out on top from time to time, but against a player like TriGGeR, I don't know if you want to go up against late game Skytoss. Oh boy, oh boy. Meanwhile, as Fernando does post in the chat, !Matcherino in the chat if you want to help boost the prize pool of this tournament by $1 for free by using code NAVLA57. As it'll stand for North America versus Latin America. This is what Battle of the Americas is all about. It's all about the land of the Americas and Latino America. Here we go. Ryu, he does go across that with a decent amount of lings, you know, just kind of pushing away this probe. He will be able to successfully get his third base. Thankfully, Ryu was also able to expand and take his natural at a decent time, at a decent position, without being disrupted by the probe of TriGGeR. Meanwhile, TriGGeR at home is going for that Stargate opening. And on a map like 2000 atmospheres, there is a lot of dead air around some of these spaces, so going for a double Stargate, honestly, I would kind of love it. I would love it a lot more than a Twilight Council follow-up. But we'll see what TriGGeR has in store for us. He does go for the Void Ray first. I mean, again, makes a lot of sense that he would do this. But show us that second Stargate. He's still lacking a little bit in the gas. The gas count is slowly getting higher and higher. Right now, he's attempting to deny scouting as best he can. Something that's interesting is that this time Ryu did not go for pneumatized carapace. He did not go for overlord speed, so he is going to have a hard time scouting what his opponent's doing. He will know it's a Stargate opener because the Void Ray is going to reveal itself and take down one of these overlords, but it's all about the follow-up. Is it going to be another Stargate? Is it going to be a Twilight Council? Is it going to be a Robo? Like, the follow-up is what matters in this matchup. Meanwhile, the Void Ray does pick off that Overlord, and what's important, again, we have a Robo as a follow-up here. Not a Twilight Council, not a Stargate. Oh my. And we'll see what TriGGeR goes for here. Again, with a Robo opening, we have seen players go for these wonky timings with like vanilla gateway units without charge or blink stalkers, and sometimes that can work. That can catch your opponent off guard, especially with that War Prism. Or we could see a very fast robotics bay, because why the hell not? You know, just go for those early disruptors. The reason why I bring that up is because that's something that Nina would do, and TriGGeR has been practicing a lot and has been influenced a lot by Nina. And there it is. There is that robotics bay for those disruptors. God damn it, Nina. Meanwhile, Ryu is off doing his own thing. He's actually working on +1 melee here. No, there we go. Finally, we have a Roach Warren, but he will be relying a lot more on those Lings to buffer and to get on top of the army. Not just get on top of the army, get us around and allow those Ravagers to bile the juicy core of the Protoss units, of the Protoss army. On top of that, Lings are going to have a very good time getting on top of those disruptors. Meanwhile, there we go. Second Stargate does get thrown down. So TriGGeR does want to go double Stargate Void Ray and have disruptors to support his army and protect them from the Roach Ravager as well as Queen pushes. So this is a very well-rounded opener from TriGGeR to get into the late game. We'll see if Ryu can stop that from happening. I worry for him a little bit. A lot of it will come down to the disruptor shots, and because he's committing a little bit more to the Lings, I have faith. I have faith. Oh boy. And we shall see. As there it is, +1, a flyer attack is on the way. Ryu is still in the dark, by the way. He has not scattered any of this. He doesn't know about the disruptors. He doesn't know about the double Stargate. He doesn't know about the +1 flyer attack or the fleet beacon. Like, he's just in the dark right now. He does see 3 Void Rays. That is indicative of double Stargate, by the way. So again, he knows about the commitments. Oh my god, he's gonna force a cancel here on the 4th base. Please cancel, Bobby, cancel! Cancel! He does. Oh, just barely. So Ryu is forced to expand over here on the right hand side. He's forced to double expand. Hopefully one of these hatcheries does go up. These Voiders are going to shark around and try and deny the bottom right. Ryu is going to try and be in position. He does need to spread his creep though. He does need all of his queens because it's a lot of Void Rays. There we go, the Void Rays have been revealed, so the Queens can respond. They do rotate all the way around here towards the south, and there are plenty of Queens. They do push away these Void Rays. The 4th base is safe for now, but TriGGeR doesn't care. He already forced 1 cancel, and carriers are on the way. Not just carriers, that disruptor count, it's getting higher and higher. We already have 2 disruptors. We have a 3rd one on the way, and ooh, Ryu is going for the Spire. Double Spire for those upgrades. Oh my god, the queen, can he save it? Wow, just barely keeps the queen alive. Took a lot of transfuses, but he was able to do so. The queen does live on. Meanwhile, this is a beautiful scout, a very necessary scout, as the the Overseer does get in. He sees the carriers being morphed in, he sees the disruptor, he sees the robotic spay. Now Ryu has all the information he needs. On top of that, also sees the 4th. Thankfully, Ryu did go for a double expand, so he does have a 5th up and running. The Void Rays are having a hard time pushing into the 4th base. Lings get cleaned up, but here come the disruptors, and the Queens, they're going to have a hard time splitting against the disruptor shots. They go off! 2 Queens immediately go down. But you know what? The Lings, they have +1 melee. They're getting on top of the disruptors, and it looks like the disruptors should be picked off. But are there enough Queens to contend against all of these carriers? That is the question that I have, as ooh, the disruptor shot does go off. It does miss the Queens. Every single disruptor gets taken out. And Ryu does defend his 4th base. Oh my god, a beautiful defense there. And now that he was able to defend, now the Corruptors are on the way. Not just Corruptors, but we should have, there we go, 1-1 for those Flyers are on the way as well when it comes to those upgrades. So Ryu is going to work nicely on those disruptors, on those Corruptors. The one thing that's worrisome is that TriGGeR, in that attack, he didn't lose any carriers. Did he lose any Void Rays? He lost 1 Void Ray. That's nothing. And that carrier count is going to get higher and higher. So Ryu, that is why it's so important for him to invest hard into these Corruptors. Not just the Corruptors, but also tech up, get that hive going, and go for the Vipers. The real question is, will the Vipers come out in time, and will they have enough energy for this attack? Because that attack is coming, and the Vipers, they need to suck on something. They have no energy whatsoever. The army does get spotted. Ryu does scout it as he did have control of the Zelnaga. There we go. Finally, the Vipers are sucking on some gas. Oh god, but it's going to take a long time for them to really get to where they need to be. The disruptor shot goes off. One of the disruptors will get focused down by the Lings. The corruptors are here, but what is there to do with the Zealots? Oh my god, but the Zealots, they do not have charge. A bit of an anti-timing here by TriGGeR. Charge still well a ways off. So TriGGeR once again gets pushed back. Ryu survives. He doesn't just survive. He keeps the majority of his corruptors alive, and now he has Vipers. He wants those yoinks. Corruptors dive on top of the carriers. He does get one of the carriers. And here we have a power bomb instead, not an abduct. Oh, I don't know if that was the best use of them. 2, 3 Vipers get taken out. At the cost of 3 carriers, I don't know if that was worth it, mate. Like, there was some sloppy micro there with the Vipers. He got the abducts off, sorry, he got the parasitic bombs off. Sure, but he wasn't able to pull away in time. And now, charge is complete. The Zealots are rushing across the map. What is there to do with this? Thankfully, there are some banelings. Are there enough banelings, though? The answer is yes. As the Lings are just barely able to clean up the Zealots with the help of those banelings. Meanwhile, another Zealot run by here towards the north side of the map. Again, something that I'm really worried about and that Ryu has kind of slipped up on. Even though he has a bunch of active creep tumors, he has not been spreading creep. He needs to spread this creep desperately. I'm just so worried about it. He barely has any vision out on the map because of it. He has a very, like, he doesn't really have a heads up whenever a push or a run by is coming his way. There we go. At least one creep tumor is being spread. There we go. A couple more as well. Ryu, he does finally have enough time to breathe and macro and notice, hey, these creep tumors, I'm lacking here a little bit. I need to spread more. On top of that, interesting choice. He's switching into Ultras. Ultras do an amazing job at getting on top of High Templar, at clearing up ground armies, especially when there are no Archons or Immortals. There are some Archons, but honestly not that many, and as I quickly check the upgrades, ooh, Storm is done, so it is important that the Ultras are on the way. The Ultras have to deal with these High Templar. At the same time, we have a bit of a run by here. TriGGeR, he is struggling to expand. He's struggling to take a 5th base, but at the same time, yo, Protoss on 4 bases, like, that is enough to max out, and you can survive for a decent amount of time with that 4 base economy. It isn't as necessary for them to expand too quickly, but a 5th base will be nice for TriGGeR, and he will need it eventually. Oh my god, at the same time, one of the Vipers once again goes down for free, does get one parasitic bomb off, but there was no follow-up, so he only deals a little bit of shield damage. Thankfully, we do have 2 more Vipers on the way, but again, Ryu has to babysit these Vipers. He has to keep them alive. He can't keep losing them like this. Meanwhile, both armies are maxed out here. But TriGGeR, he's just refining his more and more. He's slowly gathering that energy on those High Templar for the storms, for the feedbacks. It's going to be so difficult to push in here. There are only 2 Archons, thankfully. I feel like TriGGeR could do with a couple more. Maybe sacrifice some of these Zealots and Stalkers and get Archons instead. There we go. The army has been seen. Ryu knows. Same time, a bit of a Zealot run by. It will be cleaned up by the Ultra. The Ultra reveals itself to TriGGeR. TriGGeR should start Immortal production or at least more Archons. Here we go, the banelings, they're crashing in and they get on top of the High Templar. Every single High Templar goes down. No more storms available, does force a recall. Ooh. Recalls with the parasitic bomb though, does split in time. The parasitic bomb not dealing too much damage here, but that was a solid win there by Ryu. And now Ryu, he's just pushing out across the map. He wants to fight once again. He wants to engage with these Void Rays, but the Void Rays, they do activate their Pulsar beams. And they do push Ryu away for now. Ryu, he has to wait for the Pulsar beam to finish up, and then he can fight with the Corruptors. Otherwise, the Corruptors will melt. And TriGGeR forced back, forced to lick his wounds. Something that I'm really concerned about is that TriGGeR, he remaxed, but he didn't make any more High Templar. He made a war. There we go. 5 High Templar being morphed in. We need that energy. We need those spellcasters. More importantly, TriGGeR, he takes a 5th. He gets it up and running. We have a wall of cannons here. It's going to be so difficult for Ryu to deal with this. So TriGGeR, he finally gets his that economic boost that he's been waiting for this entire game. I say that, he has a massive bank. Oh god, no, the feedbacks! Oh god, the feedbacks do connect on every single Viper. Only one Abduct was used. The Ultras are coming in, they'll be able to clean out the ground army, but it's too late. The High Templar, they did their job. Now the Corruptors are trying to focus down. Oh my god, one parasitic bomb goes off. I thought it wasn't possible, but it was. There's no splits. TriGGeR, please. And now every single carrier goes down. The Void Rays took a lot of damage. Ryu taking a massive win there. And with that momentum, he forces a cancel on the 6th base. TriGGeR cannot get it up. Kappa. But Ryu, can he keep going with this? He has to be careful. The Ultras are going to have a hard time breaking through the cannons. Void Rays do activate their beams. I don't believe it's Pulsar. Pulsar beam is the Oracle, right? It's the Void Ray. It's gonna bug me. Someone in the chat help me out. Good. Ryu, he does back off again, replenishing his links, his banes, and his overlords. Overlords? Ultras. What he really needs are Vipers though. He has 3 that don't have the most energy. There is only 1 High Templar. He has to avoid that feedback. And so far, he's done a decent job, but he's having a really hard time engaging with this army. That High Templar, yo, it wants to get on top of this, and there we go. Feedback does get used only on one of the Vipers. Meanwhile, Parasitic Bomb gets thrown down. Every single Overlord, every single Void Ray gets taken out. And with that, Ryu will win the battle in the sky. TriGGeR plummeting in supply here. The 5th base will finally get broken. It will go down. At the same time, we do have a bit of a Zealot run by here towards the top left-hand corner. And even if they get the hatchery, like, that's really negligible damage. Ryu just doing so more, achieving so much more here in the bottom right. Now Ryu, he does have to replenish his Ultras. He does have to suck on some more buildings with his Vipers, but this time he kept the majority of his Vipers alive. He kept all of his Vipers alive, and now the Corruptors, they dive into the main base, pick off a carrier for free, get on top of the production. Forces a warp in of Stalkers, and this is where a Greater Spire would be amazing, and this is where we do not have a Greater Spire. Feels bad, man. We have 3-3. And if we had a Greater Spire, Ryu could switch into Broodlords from here and actually, like, make use of these Corruptors, but we just don't see that at the moment. Meanwhile, the Ultras are taking out this 5th base once again. It doesn't even matter. We do not need Broodlords. GG gets called, and Ryu takes game 1. GG, Ryu, well played. And this is what I was talking about. Like, more often than not, Ryu, he will take it to the late game. He'll macro up, he will go up against that Sky Toss, and it is so hard to control. We saw many times TriGGeR would connect with those feedbacks, like he had exceptional control with those High Templar. But every now and then a Parasitic Bomb will go off, and Ryu was doing such a good job at keeping his Corruptors alive, never overcommitting. Whenever the Void Rays activated their beams, like, he would back off. He would respect that. He would respect the Void Ray. And then as soon as that beam ran out, he would dive back in. Oh boy, as we are diving into game number 2, Ryu already having a pretty strong lead, but we're loading in on Jagannatha, and Jagannatha can be a very good map for Sky Toss. And here we go, spawning in the top right hand corner of Jagannatha LE, we have the Peruvian Zerg player, representing one of the best teams out there, the CranKy Ducklings, already up 1-0 in this best of 3 series, bearing in mind that TriGGeR is a DreamHack North American playoff player, and Ryu is already up in this series, mate, really showing his worth. It's the Street Fighter himself. It is, I already said his name, Ryu. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Jagannatha LE, we have the Canadian Protoss. I apologize, I think I may have put the American flag in game 1, I'm not too sure, but he is the Canadian Protoss representing Alpha X. He's blue. Down in this series, it is TriGGeR. My oh my. What an intense game number 1. Are we going to see more of the same? We'll see. I feel like Jagannatha is a very good map for TriGGeR to go for the same, right? To go for that Stargate opening into a fast disruptor, into a fast robotics bay, into those disruptors. I feel like he's going to find a lot of success with that here and getting into those carriers. Jagannatha, again, it's a very vertical map. There's a lot of dead space to potentially abuse. It's very easy to get up to 4 bases and even get a 5th base with this bottom right hand base here. Like it's just so easily defensible for the Protoss player. So it does make a lot of sense that TriGGeR would land on Jagannatha. Interesting that Ryu let this through the veto process. And we'll see if TriGGeR is going to be able to use the map to his advantage and get into that Skytoss once again, or if he has something else in store for us. As already, TriGGeR being very annoying with this probe and does deny the natural base, does force the unnatural here for Ryu. It is a little bit annoying, and if TriGGeR did want to go for some Glaive Adepts, they could work out here. And oh my god, as I say it, Twilight Council gets thrown down. Mates, we are gonna see them Glaives. Oh my. Oh, we'll see. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. There can be a couple of different variants to this, right? Depending on how many gateways get thrown down. Also, we have to bear in mind, as we should see a robo pretty soon, we should bear in mind that if TriGGeR wanted to, he could not commit to Glaive Adepts, and after this Twilight Council finishes, throw down a Dark Shrine and just be that much more cheeky. We shall see as the wall does get finished up. Robo is on the way. Twilight Council is done. Show us. There it is. There are those glaives. And now we have to keep an eye on the gateway count. The gateway count is going to tell us how committed TriGGeR is going to be. Is this going to be a standard 4 gates? Is this going to be a more committed 6 gate? Or is this going to be an all-in with an 8 gate? As so far we only have 4 gateways. This is very standard from TriGGeR, from our Protoss player here. 4 gateways is just stock standard gateway Glaive Adept pressure. This can snowball and end the game, but more often than not this is just a pressure, get some drone damage, and then eventually transition into Immortals. You know, you get a 3rd base behind this as well. This isn't necessarily designed to kill the Zerg player. It can though, it can, especially because of how these bases are situated. Where's the creep spread? There's no creep connecting the natural to the 3rd base. We have a spine on the way as Ryu did go in to scout. He did see the Twilight Council. He knows Glaive Adepts are on the way. Can he deal with it though? Lings are on the way, so are Roaches. I mean, he has the tools at his disposal, but it's just so awkward to move between these bases. The Adepts doing a really good job at cleaning up all these things. They try to focus on one of the queens. They don't commit to the shade. They do stay back. Meanwhile, Ryu, he is going for the Ravager response. The goal of this is to bile down the War Prism. Oh, bile gets thrown down just kind of randomly. There we go, another Ravager's on the way. Meanwhile, the Ravager's being focused down. Ooh, nice transfuse, just barely keeps Ravager alive, but at the cost of a queen. Meanwhile, the Adepts do commit to the shade. They do get into the natural base. There were only 4 drones here, so only 4 go down. Not the worst trade here for Ryu, but we do see another shade going into the main base, and it looks like he will commit to this shade, and more drones are going down. Ryu is having a very hard time defending against these Adepts, and it looks like this is just too much damage, mate. Not just because of the drone kills, but also these Ravagers, they're going down as well. Ryu is being forced, he's being pulled apart right now, and again, he's just struggling to move between these bases. And with 25 drones going down, this is game-ending damage. Behind this, TriGGeR has been probing up. He has his Immortal on the way. He's working on his third base. He's transitioning beautifully. And he's dying. Is what Ryu is doing. Glaive Adepts are just too much to handle here. Oof, and a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is due to the fact that this was scouted relatively late. There was no creep connecting the bases. If there was, I imagine that Ryu would have done what he normally does, and he would have walled off here at the natural with an Evo Chamber, his Roach Horn, and had a drone ready to throw down an Evo Chamber and complete the full wall. And that would have kept TriGGeR on the third base at least, and he would have had a hard time getting this War Prism into the main. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Ryu, he didn't have the best setup to defend against Glaive Adepts. He still doesn't, by the way. He's trying to drone up, but he's taken a lot of losses, and TriGGeR has a massive lead. Prismatic alignment, there we go. I was wondering what it was. Thank you so much, Blue Lizard. What was I saying? I think I was saying Pulsar Beam. Yeah, that's the Oracle one. Meanwhile, the Adepts are coming back in here, and any more drone kills they get here is just a bonus. And oh my god, they commit to the shade into the third base. Ryu is falling apart. More drones go down. The drones are forced off the line to fight with the Adepts. And 4 drones go down. Ryu is all in. He's sending it across the map. We have the Queens on the way. The Roaches, the Ravagers, the Lings. Has TriGGeR been too greedy? He has 2 shield batteries. He has overcharge available. One of the shield batteries almost gets taken out. The force fields are not good enough. He doesn't cut off the army. The army does back off. We do still have 3 Immortals though, as well as a War Prism for Micro. But here come the Queens. This is a very dedicated push here by Ryu. Again, 100% all in. He is down at almost half the worker count of his opponents. He's just flooding Lings across the map. Lings and Roaches. The Queens have finally shown up. The problem is that there's plenty of energy here for those force fields. The force fields get thrown down. The force fields, he's trying to deal with them, but he's also using Biles on the main army to try and force him to micro back. The Queens are having such a hard time pushing up that ramp, but if they do get up the ramp, maybe Ryu can make something happen. As overcharge gets wasted, the shield battery does go down. The Queens are finally taking part here. The transfuses are honestly pretty good, but he's running out of energy, and the Ravagers are starting to fall here, and the Immortals are standing strong. How many Immortals is this? 4 Immortals. Oh my god, there's just so much damage here. The probes are forced off the line, and the Immortals, they do not die. They are immortal, and TriGGeR defends, taking game 2. And he does force this series to go to that ace match. An ARJ skater in the chat. Aye, this is all for Sure's fault. It is. I blame for Sure's as well. I agree. 'Tis all his fault. But honestly, that was very well done there by TriGGeR. He forced a really awkward natural base to be taken by Ryu, and he took full advantage of that. And now we are going to our ace match. Can Ryu bring it back? Or can TriGGeR just keep going with this momentum that he has found himself with and take it home? We'll find out as we're going to the ace match. The ace match is going to be on Blackburn LE. One of the shortest by ground and air rush distance maps in the map pool. We also have our gold bases. We have our slow zones. Oh my. I worry for Ryu here. I've seen Ryu fall time and time again to just these solid 2-base pushes. But we'll see. We'll see what our players have in store for us here as we are loading in to game number 3. And spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Blackburn LE, we have the Peruvian Zerg. He's red, representing the CranKy Ducklings, still in this, but tied up in the series 1-1. It is Ryu. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Blackburn LE, we have the Canadian Protoss. He's blue, representing Alpha X, again having an amazing run in the most recent DreamHack season. But here he is, struggling a little bit against Ryu, at least in that late game. But we'll see how we go. It is TriGGeR. Once again, TriGGeR being very annoying with this probe, denying the natural base, forcing this time the vertical third, not the triangular third. I love this by TriGGeR. This is a lot more defensive. It can be easier to hold onto your bases here as long as you connect them with some creep. Ryu opting not to be the aggressor here, at least based on the positioning of the third, or the natural. Second base. Hatchery, as he does go for a hatch gas full opening. Again, very standard, very economic, nothing crazy aggressive coming out from Ryu, and TriGGeR sees all with this probe. Oh boy. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, so far everything is pretty normal here from TriGGeR, and now I pose the chat a question. Is TriGGeR going to go Stargate or Twilight Council? He did win the game where he went Glaive Adepts, and the map is fairly short rush distance by ground. Glaive Adepts can just zoom across the map pretty easily. On the flip side of things, obviously Protoss players, they love their Stargate play, they love their Void Rays, and you can find a lot of success here. The rush distance by ground is again also relatively short, so we could see some Void Rays just hit the main base of Ryu. This spawning pool is so exposed, so Void Rays could also do a lot of damage here as well. The ball is in TriGGeR's court. What will he go for? And we see, at least to start with, he is going for a Stargate. As I want to remind everyone to stretch. Oh god. Stretching is very important, and you also don't, posture check everyone, posture check. Don't want to be hunched over here watching this series. And we do have a Stargate opening. We'll see how committed TriGGeR is going to be here. In game number 1, we saw, already switching things up. I love it. I love it. He is going for the Oracle first. I imagine we're going to see a Void Ray a little bit later on. Now the question is he going to go for 1, 2, or 3 Oracles? So far, just committing to 1, and he is actually rallied behind his natural base. Does he want to bank them up? Excuse me. Oh my. As the first one does come out. Show me the second. There it is. At least 2 Oracles to begin with, and he is not trickling them in one at a time. He wants to dive in with 2 Oracles and one-shot those workers. Meanwhile, the Overlord is going to sneak into the main base. The Stalker was out of position, so Ryu should get a scout if he goes a little bit closer to the edge. Go get him. Go scout. And he will see the Stargate. He will not see the Morphing Oracle though. He was a little bit too late there, so he doesn't know what came out of that Stargate. Here we go. Oracles are zooming across the map. Thankfully, Ryu, because he knew it was a Stargate opening, because he scouted, we do have spores already on the way. We have queens in position, so it's going to be a little bit difficult for TriGGeR to deal damage. Obviously, players can micro incredibly well. They can avoid and they can focus on drones just like so. He does immediately get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh my god. But at the cost of an Oracle, 7 drones for 1 Oracle. Honestly, well worth it, mate. Well worth it in the end for TriGGeR. And there we go. There we have that switch into Void Ray. So TriGGeR taking a bit of an economic lead, you know, getting all that worker damage done. Oh my god, he dives in again! And he escapes as well, getting one more drone. But Ryu is taking advantage of the situation. There's nothing on the ground. You invested in those oracles and eventually Void Rays. I am going to take the gold. Let's go. And TriGGeR is being a little bit greedy and he's going straight into Stargate. So I say greedy, I should probably rephrase that. TriGGeR dealt a lot of economic damage, so I think he has the freedom to go straight into Stargate like this, into double Void Ray production. At the same time, Adepts are coming across the map. He's doing a really good job at just keeping Ryu busy. Ryu, he does defend against the Oracles, but here come the Adepts. Never mind. They get met by the Lings. Ryu is going to be able to push these away. This Void Ray shouldn't deal too much damage either. There are now 2 Void Rays though. He's going to try and threaten this gold base, but the Spore gets repositioned. We have plenty of Queens here as well. And what I'm concerned about is that TriGGeR this time didn't open up with a Robo. He does not have disruptors to protect his Stargates. Sorry, his Skytos. And without disruptors, we'll see how he fares. Meanwhile, the Oracle dives back in, taking a lot of damage. Oh my god, the Oracle, does it go down? Just barely is able to escape here, getting another 5 drone kills. Oh my god, TriGGeR is just relentless here, just keeping up this pressure, pulling Ryu apart. It isn't game-ending damage, you know, it's like 2-3 drones every now and then, but it is still significant. It does add up over time. As we can see, 15 drones have gone down, essentially an entire mineral line. And there we go, TriGGeR with a lot more of a classic transition. Double Stargate Void Ray into High Templar with Storm and Charge Loss. This does so well against Hydras, and unfortunately that is exactly what Ryu is going for. He did go for that Hydra, and Hydra upgrades are on the way, so his Hydras are going to be the anti-air of choice. And they aren't horrible against High Templar and Storm, but High Templar and Storm, they do shut it down pretty hard if the storms land, if they connect. At the moment, of course, there are no storms, so the Hydras are going to be able to push away these Void Rays. I do love this. Ryu, he is not too far behind with his Lurker Den. Lurkers are gonna give TriGGeR a hard time getting the High Templar close enough to Storm, but only when Lurker range is done. Without Lurker range, the High Templar, they can still reign supreme a little bit. Like, you have to respect them, you have to respect the Storms. At the same time, TriGGeR has to be careful with his army movement. He doesn't want to get caught out here. Oh. As the army does get pushed away, but you know what? Here come those High Templar. Storm is still a ways away, though. They may be forced to be morphed into Archons if he does go for the fight, but TriGGeR does back off. And there is that fleet begin to transition into that Skytos. Not just that, but TriGGeR, we see him expanding. He's taking his 4th base. Ooh, trying to throw down a Stasis Ward as well. It will not get triggered. Will stay up. And Ryu is not too far behind with his Hive. His Hive is a little bit late, a little bit mistimed, I should say, with the Lurker Den. But here we go, 4 Lurkers are on the way. Ryu going for his classic, his composition of choice, Hydra, Lurker, Viper. Of course, the Vipers are still on the way. We do need the Hive to finish up for that, but Ryu, he is known for his Hydra, Lurker, Viper control. That is what he wants to be on, ideally. But we'll see how that does against TriGGeR. Again, we're going to see the dance of the 2 units. We're going to see the dance of the High Templar and the Vipers. Who gets the feedback off first? Who gets the abduct off first? Are the Lurkers going to be in position? These are all questions we need answers to. Meanwhile, this is where Ryu lacks, honestly, a little bit, where in general, especially in this matchup, even in ZVT, I've noticed as well, creep spread is where he lacks. He has a lot of Queens, but the Queens are mostly used as an attacking unit to defend against the Void Rays. his creep spread is lacking, especially compared to the amount of queens that he has. It's something that I feel like he does need to work on as a player. It does hinder him as well. Like, we see time and time again, these zealot run-bys, like, they don't get scattered until the last minute. Not just that, but also Ryu, he can only engage on creep, or ideally you engage on creep, so he has to wait for TriGGeR to push into him, and with that creep spread, he has to wait for TriGGeR to push into his bases, essentially. There we go, Ryu has taken note of it. He was spreading some creep, and there we go, some tumors are thrown down. Meanwhile, the Vipers are coming out. TriGGeR has taken a long time to really be aggressive, and in the end, Ryu was able to meet up with him, kind of push him away, and TriGGeR is working on those carriers. At the same time, thankfully, Ryu is transitioning out of Hydras as his anti-hero of choice. He will be starting Corruptor production as soon as that Spire finishes. And we have found ourselves in a bit of a lull in this game, where both players are just chilling at home. They're just expanding. They're, oh my god, setting up a spore forest. Ryu can do a little bit more setup here, taking out some of these rocks and spreading more creep. But at least when it comes to his tech, he is looking pretty good right now. Like, Lurker range is on the way, Hydras are coming out, sorry, Vipers are coming out. We do have the upgrades on the way for the Corruptors as well. Oh my god, and we even have 2 Nidus Worms on the way. Let's go. Oh my god, this is classic Ryu. So Ryu, he has to defend against these zealots. Sure, he has to defend against the army, but if he is able to do so, he will immediately counterattack with lurkers, with those Niduses. Oh my god, so TriGGeR has to be so careful with how he engages here. I mean, he does get a revelation on one of these lurkers, but immediately we see an abduct on a carrier. One does go down above the feedbacks. The feedbacks do connect. We do have one more carrier actually surviving here. This fight is not going too well for Ryu. Again, these Vipers, they need to go back home. They need to suck on some more buildings. They need to gather that energy. Meanwhile, the Queens finally do show up. They are here to help support the ground army of Ryu. Zealots come in. Zealots immediately die. It was a meat grinder due to the sheer amount of lurkers. But here we go. Here come the Niduses. We do have one here in the top left-hand side of the map. Meanwhile, another here in the natural. The one in the natural will be dealt with, but that doesn't matter. That was just a ruse, as the lurkers do burrow in. And it looks like these lurkers should get a kill on this Nexus. But the Nidus gets taken out. The lurkers are trapped. No, this is going to be a massive investment here for Ryu, and he's going to lose a lot of lurkers. One already going down. The rest, they're going to be able to scuttle away. Another goes down there. 2 lurkers. No, keep going. Never mind. Never mind indeed. As TriGGeR doesn't chase, the lurkers, for the most part, all managed to escape. Did lose 2 on the retreat, but only 2. Another lurker being as annoying as possible here, but there is an observer with the main army. The lurker will be dealt with, and we do see a switch now into Tempest. Again, something that is really lacking here for Ryu. That creep spread, mate. Oh my god, it doesn't help that now we have observers with the main army of TriGGeR, so he's just cleaning up as much of this creep as possible. Oh my god! Another feedback does land, another feedback as well. 2 feedbacks in a row, only 1 Viper left with energy. Lurkers were not forward enough to help protect them. Meanwhile, we have double Nidus in the main base. We do have 2 Zealots being morphed in, but TriGGeR is maxed out. He cannot afford to warp in any more units. And the Niduses will finish up. The Lurkers will burrow here, and then now he's deep in the production. We don't even see a recall. The rest of the army is forced to react, and we'll see how much damage these Void Rays can get done. Ooh, as they do take out both Niduses, the Lurkers, there is no escape for them. Corruptors show up, trying to distract the Void Rays. And honestly, they do a decent job, but the Void Rays, they're back on top of those Lurkers. These Lurkers, they will get cleaned up. There is no escape for them unless another Nidus gets thrown down. My god, but a lot of these Void Rays are actually going down. Oh my god, TriGGeR, please! 3, 4, 5 Void Rays full. These are losses he cannot afford. Meanwhile, the carrier army is pushing through the center of the map. All the corruptors are busy dealing with the Void Rays. They are not at home to defend against the carriers. They need to come back home. Oh my god, the Vipers as well, but they're going through cannons. Oh no, they can be focused down by the Stalkers. 1, 2 Vipers fall. Oh my god, massive losses there. Storms are connecting with the corruptors. Does Ryu have enough? He's taking a lot of damage by those storms, but it looks like there are just barely enough corruptors here. Meanwhile, those lurkers that I said were dead, they're still not dead, mate. They're finding even more damage here. Finally, the mothership does come in and it's going to be able to clean all of this up. What's important is that TriGGeR responded to this. He went all the way back home with his entire army. Oh my god, we see more lurkers here in the natural base, and Ryu, he can breathe at home. He can take another base. He can drone up. He can remake the Vipers that he just lost. Like, he is feeling so comfortable right now. TriGGeR is the one that's panicking. TriGGeR is the one having a hard time just regaining control of his bases. Thankfully, though, he does regain control of them. He is able to clean up every single one of these Niduses, except for this one here, as another lurker shows up. And again, this is just a distraction for TriGGeR. He responds with everything here, and this is just buying time for Ryu to remake those Vipers, gather that energy, remake the lurkers, remake the corruptors. Something that is missing for Ryu, though, is I would love to see a Greater Spire. I do think that he is lacking in upgrades. He has 2-2, which is great. Where's 3-3 for the Flyers, mate? You know, like, get those upgrades going. Utilize that bank that you have. Ryu has a massive bank. There's no reason for him not to be working on upgrades right now. It's just slipping his mind. And that could bite him. That could definitely hurt him in the long run. Ryu, please. Again, he's just tunnel visioning right now. It's not just the flyer upgrades, carapace as well that will affect the lurkers as well as the queens. There we go. Enough time has passed where he's realized, yo, upgrades. +3, +3 as well. Ooh, +1 carapace for flyers. I thought he had 2-2. Never mind, he only had +2 flyer attack. Solid feels bad, man. Meanwhile, this lurker actually finding a lot of damage. Oh my god, the probes! The probes! Oh no, TriGGeR, please! He is distracted. He is pushing in with his main army. Now the mothership has arrived. The entire army is cloaked. Where is the detection? There is one Spore here and an Overseer in the back line. There we go. We do have a yoink. -400. -400 for TriGGeR. At the same time, we do have a bit of a Zealot run by. He was dealing with the Spore Forest, but this will be cleaned up eventually as the lurkers do borrow. They do root themselves, they do push away the army. TriGGeR, will he remake that mothership? It looks like for now he will not. He was able to rebuild that fleet beacon. Again, a lot of his production was dealt with in the main base, but he has replenished it. He has rebuilt even. But can TriGGeR keep up? To be fair, because TriGGeR is maxed out, this can still come down to one big fight. And TriGGeR, that's all he needs. One big fight to go his way, and then he can just power through everything else that Ryu has. He just has to be so careful. Ryu has to be so careful not to get feedbacked, not to get stormed, not to be caught out of position with his army just unawares. Meanwhile, I love how both armies, both players want to expand here towards the south. No, here comes Ryu. Oh, the feedbacks. That Templar did not respond. TriGGeR wasn't paying attention. But it looks like TriGGeR does want this base. The hatchery will be forced to be cancelled. Ryu, he's looking to push in though. He has to be so careful. Where are the feedbacks? They do not connect this time. We do have one yoink, a second yoink. One carrier gets taken out, but a bunch of those Tempests do get a bunch of free shots off. What I'm also concerned about, we have a lot of lurkers here. Ideally, like as great as these lurkers have been, show me that Ultra Cavern. Show me those Ultras. As we do not have an Ultra Cavern at all here for Ryu. Meanwhile, the lurkers are cleaned up here. They were attempting to harass, but oh god, they weren't able to deal with the zealots in time. Oh, the feedbacks! No! 3 feedbacks connect, only 1 Viper gets away with its life, with its energy, and now it's go time for TriGGeR. He knows that you do not have enough energy for those spells. He's looking to push in. A storm connects beautifully with the corruptors. But he is pushing into lurkers and spores. Like, this is not where you want to be pushing in, TriGGeR. Another storm connects. God, TriGGeR is being so patient with how he uses these Tempests. At the same time, though, Nidus did go up in the natural. These lurkers are going to deal so much damage. TriGGeR has to push through, but the parasitic bomb connects. Ooh, nice splits there by TriGGeR. He is able to split up and keep that parasitic bomb from dealing too much damage. Oh my god, those Tempests are just doing so much here. But again, TriGGeR is taking a long time to push through, and those corruptors are being remade. And the natural does go down. Oh my god, he actually pushes through. Oh my god, the storms! Ryu, please, you can't eat storms like this. And even though the lurkers are coming back to defend, even though we have some parasitic bombs which are dealing some decent damage, like that corruptor count, it's getting lower and lower, and they're getting bruised. Oh my god, the Void Rays, they activate their prismatic alignments. TriGGeR is pushing through, and he has broken this base here, this hatchery of Ryu. Everything goes down. Meanwhile, Ryu, he does get a couple of parasitic bombs off, and a lot of these Void Rays will fall, but it is not enough. Oh my god, that was not the best engagement there for Ryu. He committed when he really shouldn't have, and he loses his entire army. And with that, TriGGeR, 1 fight is all he needed. I was talking about Ryu really respecting the Void Rays previously in the previous game. This game, he did not. He ignored the Void Rays, he pushed on forward, and he lost so much as a result. Good. Meanwhile, those High Templar are taking a lot of damage. All the High Templar get taken out. No more storms available. The Hydras and the Corruptors are coming in. Yo, can Ryu turn this around? Can he do it? He's trying to focus down every single carrier, and he's able to focus down 2, 3, 4 carriers go down. Ryu with his reinforcements, not just his reinforcements, it was hard to see, I don't know if you noticed, but the lurkers actually dealt so much damage to those High Templar. And with all those High Templar gone, suddenly the fight swung in Ryu's favor, and Ryu, with all these bases, with this economy, like, he is going to be able to rebuild his army. He's starting to run out though, but what's important is that TriGGeR, this base here matters so much to him, and it looks like it may go down. The Void Rays are back though. 1 does go down, prismatic alignment does get activated. Ryu has to pull back, he has to wait until it runs out, or at least fight with his Hydras. Oh, and the prismatic does keep the Nexus alive, and this is so important. Ryu can't let this base go up. He cannot let TriGGeR mine from this base. Instead, he backs off. I respect it, I guess. He's going to try and rotate around and take out another base instead. Maybe force out a recall. It looks like this Nexus should go down due to the caustic spray. Never mind. Ryu, please. There's nothing here. Ryu backs off and instead expands towards the north. Oh my god. Ryu with his indecisiveness. He's pulled all the way back, but you know what? Prismatic alignment, it's on cooldown. The queens are here instead. This is a fight that Ryu can fight, but can take, but not if he stays in the storms. Another storm lands. Oh my god, the Corruptor's taking so much damage. But that was the last storm. Oh, but Ryu doesn't go for it. He backs off. I guess it's understandable. He wants to gather more energy on those Vipers. Those 2 Zealots, by the way, actually forced a cancel on the northern hatchery, and they're gonna force another cancel. Ryu, he's spread too thin. He cannot protect this base, and TriGGeR is getting away with the 6 o'clock Nexus. No, this is disastrous for Ryu. Ryu, he has to get at least another base up and deny a Nexus. Again, Ryu trying to double expand as we speak. The Hydra's completely out of position here. This base towards the south will go down. The Hydras need to be a part of this fight. Without the Hydras, Ryu cannot hold. The Hydras are coming back, but they've got a long way to go. Oh my god, the High Templar, they're waiting to storm. They want that juicy storm connection. It looks like they're gonna get it. Oh my god, actually go for the feedbacks instead. Every single High Templar goes down. Ooh, the Vipers go down as well without getting any spell off. But the 360 surround with the Hydras and the Queens, it looks like it is going to be enough once again for TriGGeR to win this fight. But what about the economy? 20 drones went down. He needs to get another base up. He's broke. Even though Ryu keeps winning fights, and he does, by the way, he keeps winning these fights beautifully, he can't remake the army. He doesn't have any follow-up. He is running out of steam. And TriGGeR, mate, he's got the gold still to mine. He's got the 6 o'clock. Like, he's still mining from the top left. Meanwhile, Ryu has no income. This is his economy. He's got like 4 patches. It's nothing. Oh god, and now this southern base is so heavily fortified with cannons and shield batteries. There is no way for Ryu to break this position. He's struggling to deal with the gold base. He can't take the top left because of the cannons as well. He just can't punish the bases. Even though he keeps winning fights, he can't do anything about the economy. God, meanwhile, TriGGeR once again, he's going to be pushing out here onto Creep. The Hydras and the Corruptors are here to respond. A lot of stack defense at the same time. No, a massive Zella run by Ryu. He needs this base. He needs the base and he's not going to hold on to it. The Hydras do respond, but GG gets called. And TriGGeR takes the series 2-1. GG. TriGGeR just starved Ryu out. Ryu just couldn't get another base up. And that comes down to the map. Blackburn, it's so small, it's so condensed. And there's not a lot of bases to take. You know, the bases, especially towards the late game, the 12 o'clock and the 6 o'clock, they are so close to your opponents. It's so difficult to really keep them up, especially when you're, you know, fighting on the opposite side of the map. And in the end, Ryu was not able to deny that base from TriGGeR. And TriGGeR was able to do that to Ryu, so GG, my condolences to Ryu. He fought hard, he fought well. But in the end, it just wasn't enough. TriGGeR takes the series and moves on to the grand finals. And now, we have another series to cast, another semi-finals.